Uh, I want to introduce Rick Harnish. Rick has co-founded the High Speed Rail Alliance in 1993 with a passion for revitalizing the region he grew up in, lives in, and loves. The Alliance builds the political will for systemic changes by advocating integrated rail and transit networks connected by 200 plus mile per hour speed lines. By connecting cities, towns, and airports, the high-speed trains will dramatically expand economic opportunities and slash carbon emissions. A native of Chicago area, Rick has been AMHSRA's executive director since 2001. Welcome, Rick.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm distracting myself a little bit and wondering, when you guys meet in person, where do you meet?
We meet at the Patrick's Grill on Franklin Street in Michigan City.
Oh, downtown. Okay.
Downtown, right? Yeah.
Is there another club out on 20?
Is there another? What was that?
Was there another club out on US 20, or was that a different? I'm sorry.
No, that must be something different. Yeah, no. The other club that I have around here is LaPorte.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm sorry that I couldn't meet with you in person and take the train out to see you all. So I want to clarify, I think we may have advertised that we were going to talk in more detail about the expansion of the South Shore. If we advertised that, I apologize. I don't have a lot of details on it. I can hook you up with, if you haven't already had a presentation from the South Shore, I know they give a good presentation on it. I'd like today to talk about bigger picture issues and some things that are going on at the federal level, so that not only when we do more of the work like they're doing west of Michigan City, but getting faster and more frequent trains from Michigan City to South Bend on the South Shore, and then to Detroit, from Michigan City to Detroit and Lansing, et cetera, on Amtrak. I've got a quick presentation. Let's see if I know how to do this.
There you go.
Okay. So you should see a picture of an Acela train going by at fairly high speed, right? So we're a nonprofit. We're supported by our members, and we do three things that are interrelated. The first is through research and other ways, we strive to be the most knowledgeable, independent source of information on what high-speed rail is, why we should do it, and what steps local leaders can take to move it forward. I'm assuming, I just got a message that somebody can't hear. Are you guys can hear me okay? Most folks? Okay.
Yeah, I think most of us can hear you fine.
Okay, okay. Research, education. So we educate people and local leaders through a lot of different forums, this being one of them, and thank you again for having us. And then the third is through our website and other means, we provide tools that folks need to educate their leaders, whether they're in Indianapolis or Washington, D.C. This is a picture of an Acela train. Currently the fastest train in the United States, or actually in the Western Hemisphere. It links Washington, New York, and Boston. There's some sections where it's going 150 miles an hour. And there will be a new section in New Jersey, not new, rebuilt section in New Jersey where it'll go 160. But it demonstrates that if we provide in North America trains that are fast enough and frequent enough, people will ride the train in large numbers. In fact, there's an interesting challenge here in that we haven't provided Amtrak the funds they need to provide enough service on the Northeast Corridor. So they're probably charging, people are willing to pay higher fares than probably is necessary if they could offer a lot more seats and carry a lot more people. So we do this for three core reasons. The first is to build stronger communities, both by making it easier and more productive and safer to travel, but also by creating communities. It can be a driver towards creating communities that are more walkable. And when people are walking around on the street, they bump into each other, and there's those little interactions that happen that you can't plan for, that happen in person. And we will lower carbon emissions. The more people take trains and buses, the better off we are in terms of pollution in that specific range. And then also, there's a group that we admire the way that they're doing their work, called Strong Towns, that really is founded on the founders' realization that the way we are have developed our cities for the last 50 years is financially unsustainable. So we have put so much, by spreading our houses and buildings out so much, we put so much infrastructure in the ground that we won't be able to maintain it based on the tax revenues that generates. And so again, trains and buses will help bring that together to make cities more efficient and more financially sustainable. And there's also the advantage that's unique to trains of you can actually talk to each other face to face as you're traveling. So you can sit at a table in many trains, you don't have to, but many trains do have tables. And this is a TGV train in France. And the fastest trains in France go 205 miles an hour, though they did a test run that went 357 miles an hour. So we've had a little bit of progress in the Midwest. The next stage will be Amtrak is getting new trains. And hopefully within the next year or two, you'll be able to board one of these in Michigan City at the station on the north side of downtown. These are the first 4 of these new cars. They were delivered in the fall, and they've started testing them. And I'm really excited about the prospect of being able to ride on these. They are based on a train built for Brightline. And Brightline is in the process of doing what we would call a shared use line that goes from Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, Cocoa, Miami, Orlando Airport, Disney, and then Tampa. Right now they're under construction from Orlando to West Palm Beach, and they had a demonstration service in operation for about 2 years prior to COVID. So this is the economy section in one of those trains. We went down and took a ride of it, a group of us. And I want to show here, we've got plugs. So at the table, you've got USB plugs and standard, 120 volt plugs. Got plugs down in between the seats, reclining seats. The table portion slides out for when you're actually sitting there. Big windows, right? And again, you don't have to sit at a table if you don't want, but there are tables. This is the business class on that same train. And again, it was a demonstration run. But our new Amtrak cars will look like this, only with blue seats instead of white. And I still don't understand why you would have white seats in something where people are getting on and off really quick, but ours will be blue. And then I want to point out, if you come back to this picture, there's no seatbelt here, right? And so because trains are so much safer than airplanes or cars, you don't have to have a seatbelt, which means you can get up and walk around. So this is a cafe car on a train from Seville to Madrid. This line was the 3rd high-speed line built in Europe. It opened in 1993. So it's a little bit slower than what you would have if you were to build it today. So we're going 186 miles an hour in this picture. And you can see here, you know, how that's impacting the water. It's a really smooth ride. You can actually stand around and talk. This was part an event to celebrate 25 years of high-speed rail in Spain, where the main event was held in Ciudad Real, which is kind of like, if we were to do a local comparison, that'd kind of be like Champaign, or actually Lafayette, Purdue, right? So, you know, imagine if you could hold a conference in Lafayette at the local college, have a third of the attendees spend their nights in Chicago instead of in Lafayette, and then have the main event in Cincinnati for one day, where you go down and have the big luncheon. And not only that, hold one of the conferences on the train because there's TVs on the train, right? So that's what we did. You could not do that. You could not split that conference out amongst those three cities today in the US, but with high-speed rail, you could. So it's just one extreme example of how trains really bring people much closer together. So if you take that Chicago to St. Louis comparison, which is about the distance of Chicago to Cincinnati, Cincinnati is a little bit further, but it's pretty much the same. Amtrak today, there are 3 trains. It takes just about 5.5 hours. And the ticket price, when I looked for travel about a week out, was 25 to 71 bucks, right? In Spain, even during COVID, they have 10 trains a day taking 2.5 hours. Now it's a little bit slower than it was pre-COVID. They must be making more stops. They used to have express trains that didn't make stops. Ticket price 71 to 96. I'd probably charge lower tickets. And that's the way they do it in France. So a similar comparison in France would be $55. United on that, they just have 4 planes a day. And there are a couple of United American flights and a couple of Southwest flights, but they depart at basically the same times as the United flight. So I'm counting that as 4. They do that in 1 hour and 20, but you got the time getting out to the airport and the baloney you have to go through because planes are so fragile that they have to actually inspect your luggage to see if you've got something on the plane that you're taking with you that can destroy the plane, with much higher ticket prices, right? So already Spain is much better off than we are because they have more options for traveling. The car would be about 5 hours if you don't take any breaks. And the price of gas is probably in the $25 range. So I would try to have the train tickets, you know, match the price of gas. And then on that same length of trip, this is a comparison of what the carbon emissions would be if you were to do that trip by these different modes. So you've got the AVE Chicago or Madrid to Seville on the left-hand side there, and A380 or 737 in the middle, and then a single occupancy diesel, small diesel European car. So diesels put out more pollution than gas, but we drive much bigger cars than they do, so it's probably a wash. And then on the cost side, so one railroad track is basically 10 highway lanes. This is the busiest line for high-speed rail in the world is Tokyo to Osaka. They run that thing basically like a subway with a train every 5 minutes, and the trains have 1,100 seats. In China, they have a busy line like that, linking Shanghai and Nanjing. And their trains are a little bit bigger, with 1,200 seats, plus they sell standee-only tickets. And then they are currently doing the distance of Chicago to New York in 4.5 hours, and they have 72 trains a day. So the high-speed rail brings you a lot more flexibility in when you want to travel. On the right-hand side, You know, you've got the problems with taking up a lot of land, dividing communities. You've got the rubber tires turning into dust, which gets into our water and into our lungs, noise pollution, etc. On the left-hand side, you do have a little bit of noise pollution. It's easier to deal with creating the connections across the right-of-way. And in fact, here I'm close to when I'm taking to this bridge, an underpass, so that farm equipment can get under those tracks. That's the high-speed line that connects Frankfurt and Cologne, where they're running 186 miles an hour in that picture. So right now, there's a one-to-one comparison underway. The state of Washington is considering doing adding one lane in each direction between Portland, Seattle, and Vancouver, British Columbia. They're thinking that's going to cost just shy of $110 billion. And that doesn't really add much capacity and probably saves you 4 or 5 minutes, maybe 10 on your trip. On the left-hand side, you've got, again, 10 lanes of highway capacity, plus it's cutting the trip time in half. And that's not just for the big cities. Trains can make stops. So you can have express trains that only stop in the really big cities. And then you can have locals that stop in smaller cities. And it basically cuts the trip time in half. So the left-hand side changes your economic position in your world and how closely people can interact with each other. The right side doesn't really do that much for you. So if you put all of the pieces of high-speed rail together, it's completely transformative, and it looks like something completely different than what you have today with Amtrak or with the South Shore. But really, it's just an evolution of a technology that's been around for 200 years. So every year in most places in the world, the trains are a little bit better, the technology is better. These are now incredibly high technology vehicles, but you can assemble different pieces in different ways because it is just really a more precise railroad. So we have narrowed the 3 categories of tracks to simplify the discussion into 3. One we would call high-speed lines, where you're building new track. Maybe 20% of this network in this country should be brand new track running at 200 miles an hour or above. In this illustration, we've got that illustrated in purple, where you take existing lines and you rebuild them to be focused on frequent passenger trains, perhaps electrified, maybe with some freight trains on them. We would call those regional. So in your case, the South Shore is a regional line. It's focused on passenger and it's electrified. So you can either have that going out into the country or perhaps to access the city. And then shared use lines is where you're cooperating with the freight railroad to also run passenger trains. And from Michigan City to Chicago, Amtrak is running on a shared use line. And then buses can fill in the gaps where the railroads either aren't there or you don't have enough volume. So this all works together in a network. You can piece all these pieces together in a different way, depending upon your local needs. But to do it, you really need a big picture plan in order to coordinate these and understand how each piece works together. To get to a more granular level, these are the steps you have to take in order to go fast. So if you want to go faster than 90 miles an hour, you need to put the heavy freight trains and the slower commuter trains someplace else. This is the Madrid to Bologna line, where they're currently running at 200 miles an hour. And the old line is a couple miles to the east. I was able to walk from a local station over to a bridge here to take this picture. If you want to go faster than 110, you need to separate the roads. And you can see when they built the new high-speed line, they built it alongside the autostrada to minimize the impact of closing roads by just extending the existing bridges. If you want to go faster than 125, you need to electrify it. This is a good idea no matter what. This is a good idea no matter what. but those are the steps you have to take to go faster. Fencing is probably always a good idea to keep people from walking in front of the trains. And then the faster you go, the more rigid the track needs to be. But it's still, these rails are still 4 feet, 8.5 inches apart from each other, which means that a train can go on both the slow speed track and the high speed track if you design the train properly, which makes it a lot easier to phase this in. So California is way ahead of us on this. They already have this big picture plan for connecting their existing Amtrak service, commuter rail service, and bus lines across the state. They have a 2040 plan for that. It's the first state ever to do that. That's based on a big program that they initiated in 2009. I am sorry, I cannot get that date right. It's 1990. The voters agreed to a big spending program to expand highways, but also transit, Amtrak, bike paths, etc. So their Amtrak service today, if we had the same California style program, you probably have 16 trains a day taking you to Detroit from Michigan City. And then in 2008, the voters agreed to build a new 220-mile-an-hour high-speed line. And this is that under construction outside of Fresno. They're in the midst right now. This is under construction right here. And it's easy to say if you don't understand how this all works together, that's a train to nowhere. But what they would like to do is extend it from Bakersfield to Merced. They've identified enough of state money in order to run electrified high-speed trains from Bakersfield to Merced. They're finishing the planning work to get across the mountains down into LA. They're doing a regional line here, so they're taking a diesel commuter line and they're upgrading it for 110-mile-an-hour electrified commuter trains. And those will mix with high-speed trains. It's an excellent, compromise for the assets you have and getting through there. That's under construction today. They've got all these other Amtrak and commuter lines that are steadily being improved. And in fact, they're doing a big expansion of service from Merced to Sacramento. So that's underway. Oh, and there's a private company that's going to build from Las Vegas to Victorville called Brightline. Same folks in Florida. They will hopefully break ground shortly. And then they're designing the link across the Cajon Pass, and then they'll work with the local railroad to electrify those tracks like they're doing up here. So this is what the network looks like in 2028 if they move forward with true high-speed rail between Merced and Bakersfield. And the money is already there and authorized. The legislature needs to appropriate it this year. But you'll have, instead of 7 trains a day from Bakersfield to Merced, you'll have 18 trains a day, and frequency is a key part of doing whether you'll take the train or not. This will go from 90 minutes down to, 3 hours down to 90 minutes. So it cuts the time in half there. And then the 7 trains a day that go to Stockton and then split on these 2 corridors will become 18 trains a day that go from Merced to Stockton and then split in 3 ways coming down here. And then all of these bus lines will go to 18. These connecting here will go to 18, and then these will get expanded here. So because of that expansion, the ridership will double, the revenue will more than double on that network. So you'll be carrying a lot more people across the state. This has a statewide impact for a reduction in the amount of money that it takes to do that. We think the states should put together a master plan like California has for the Midwest. This is one potential vision of what that might look like. with new high-speed lines branching off basically in four ways from Chicago, lots of upgraded freight lines, bus lines, etc. If we were to do this, would become one economic region of 33 million people, which would compete with Spain that's already done it, France that's already done it, Italy's already done it, on and on and on and on, right? The Federal Railroad Administration is doing a first step towards this. This is bringing it down to, because Michigan City is more on the east-west corridors than on the north-south corridors in the state. I grabbed the Michigan map. And basically today you've got the one Amtrak service that's coming across to Cleveland. We would like to see that expanded. You've got the South Chicago, the South Shore service, which is coming across here and then going to South Bend. They are beginning, and I was very disappointed to see and happy to see, mixed feelings. A key part of making the service from Michigan City to Chicago better is putting a new station in at Miller. And right now that's on a single track railroad. They're going to double track it and build a new modern train station in Miller. I'm thrilled about that, but I'm bummed that they cut down all the trees in order to do it. But that's under construction now. That's very exciting. They're going to do other things like that along the way, which means you'll have much more frequent service and it'll take time out of the schedule. So that's underway. And then we would like to see the state of Michigan continue their upgrade work for this line and get all of the speeds up to 110. There actually are 110 mile an hour speed limits in here. They're upgrading this, but instead of the 2 or 3 trains a day that are operating now, we think it should be hourly. And then that would connect you into this big corridor here. And then improvements should happen to Grand Rapids, etc. This is the, you have the advantage of having a couple of different ways of getting from Michigan City to Chicago. Here's where the Amtrak trains run on the existing line, Norfolk Southern line. And then here's the South Shore line. And in this section here by Portage, it is double tracked, but they're in the process of totally double tracking that. In terms of what's next, there's a couple of ways to make all of these things work better. So today, the trains that go to Grand Rapids are coming around on this line, and then they connect to a CSX line and go through Michigan City on the south side, and then out to Grand Rapids and along the coast. If a connection was built near New Buffalo, those trains instead would come and stop in New Buffalo at Michigan City, giving you options for going up into northern Michigan. As part of the double tracking, it isn't planned, but we would like to see a connection built here so that the trains, you could have more trains coming from Michigan and using the new expanded infrastructure across. Not sure South Shore totally builds into that, but that's one potential opportunity for expanding service in this whole area. To move these things forward, I would take that Michigan off of there. I apologize for this, but you know, if you want to be involved and learn more, you can go to hsrail.org. There's a petition you can sign asking Congress to fund this. Right now, Congress is debating what the transportation program looks like for the next 4 or 5 years. We would like there to be many more projects like the double tracking and these expansion projects that I've talked about today, but they need to hear from people all around the country in order to make that happen. So there's, that's a quick overview, and stop, this is how you do it there. I'd be happy to take any questions if you have them.
Hey, Rick, this is Jim Melbourne. I am an avid train fan. Okay, I have taken almost every Amtrak rail line. I'm taking the Texas Eagle now, which is one that I didn't take, but I'm taking that in May, I'm going from Chicago to San Antonio to New Orleans and then back up to Chicago. I also have a friend who lives in Detroit, and I really like the high-speed line that they have between Porter and Kalamazoo. But my issue with Amtrak right now is the service for the passenger on the train keeps getting worse.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
And the frequency of the travel is getting less. The quality of the service is getting less. I'm part of the Rail Passenger Association, and so I'm working through them to try to get stuff done. But I'm really happy to see that people are pushing for these high-speed lines.
Yeah, and the key is we decided as a country back first in 1918, Congress passed the first interstate highway program, right? And so we created in a few short years a hard pavement 2-lane system that basically connected the entire country, right? And then they started planning on a 4-lane all-weather highway network in 1936 was the first proposal that came out for that. And we funded that in 1956. We've never done the comprehensive vision for the US. And that's really what's needed in order to make this really work. The existing programs at the federal level with some more money, we could do a lot more stuff, and it's not that much money compared to other things. So it's really key of getting Congress to know we need to make it happen.
Anybody else have questions for Rick?
I've got one. You mentioned close to the beginning, you said you're looking to create communities that are more walkable, but I see it's probably a chicken and the egg thing, and I'm curious how you guys are handling that, because we don't have communities that are walkable. So why would you put a train there? But if you had a train there, you'd have communities that are walkable, and it's probably a vicious cycle. So
yeah, so our cities and towns still have very good bones, right? It's a matter of taking what we have, and like in Michigan City, there's a lot of vacant lots that in order to turn a walkable community into a driving focused community, you tore down a lot of buildings. Well, probably we could put those buildings back up, right? And now with things like Uber and Lyft, it makes it easier to deal with that last mile issue. Certainly, people are much more willing to bike than they used to be. That's another part of the solution. But it all goes together in terms of making it work.
okay.
Rick, this is Debbie. Can you speak to the safety measures that you talked about? You said, look, they're all sitting here enjoying a cocktail because it's so safe. And in my head, I'm just imagining being doused with the next person's drink. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, if you go back to that picture where the drink wasn't moving that much, right? It's the tracks for high-speed rail, the tracks are incredibly smooth. And if you maintain the tracks properly, even for slower trains, the tracks are pretty smooth. So that's the spilling of drinks isn't an issue like it is, on some of our rougher track. The other issue is, because trains are self-guided as opposed to being steered by an operator, that's one level of safety. The next is because with track circuitry, you can know where the train is and stop the train if it's doing things that it's not supposed to be doing. That's another layer of safety. And then the way that the forces of slowing down occur in a train versus a car or a plane also makes it a lot safer. So I'm not sure that answered your question, but I hope so.
Anybody else got a question for Rick?
Yeah, Rick, John Boss back here. Do these trains that have a longer time of travel have such as a cafe or sleeping quarters or any of that sort of thing? Are they so fast that you don't need that?
So it's a matter of preference. So in Europe, they tend to still have cafe cars. And like in Germany, the high-speed trains have diners. And boy, is that nice to be able to sit down in a diner even when you're going 3 or 4 hours. There are high-speed sleeping trains in China. So you can basically take a sleeper from New York to Omaha if you want. And it's a matter of you know what you want to have and what you're willing to pay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Well, Rick, that was very interesting. And like I said, I'm definitely going to see if I can join your alliance because I'm part of the, the Rail Passenger Association as well, and see if we can get some things working here like this. I really enjoyed when they increased the speed between Porter and Kalamazoo, but I really hate sharing tracks with freight trains.
Well, you know, if it's done right, you can share freight and passenger trains can share the track well. But the big picture is we've disinvested as a country in our railroad infrastructure, and so they no longer work well together. But it can work.
Okay, well, I'm glad to see things are moving forward because I think it's more economical. Like you said, it's more economical. It's better for the environment, and it moves people faster. So,
excellent. Thank you very much.
All right. All right, now we will move on to our SARS program. Matt, you want to go ahead and start moving in here now?
I do. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Rotary. We want to remind everyone that we are striving to provide a average Rotary donation of $50 per person to Rotary Foundation so that we can get a grant, a Rotary grant. I also remind you to donate to our club foundation. So let's start in on good of the order. Who's got something to update us on besides this beautiful sunny windy weather?
Well, I'll say since we're talking about trains, I'll come in and jump in and say that I was telling them that in May I'm going to be actually traveling again now that I'm fully vaccinated, and going to be going from New Buffalo to Chicago on Amtrak. Then I'm going to take Amtrak from Chicago to San Antonio, see my 100-year-old aunt who's living in San Antonio, go from San Antonio to New Orleans, go from New Orleans back to Chicago, and then from Chicago back to New Buffalo. So it should be a fun trip.
Yeah.
Debbie, if you want to spill drinks, take the City of New Orleans train. It spills lots of drinks, believe me. Its tracks run over kind of like a bog kind of stuff. And with the freight trains going through and the tracks, you kind of rock back and forth about 20 feet, I think, sometimes. But it definitely will spill drinks on the City of New Orleans. So
Fun. Well, I got my second vaccine, so I got about 2 weeks till I'm fully safe. So that's my news. Anyone? Dennis, Pastor Carol, how are you today? You need to unmute.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
What did I say? I knew I said something, but I must have been muted. I got my second vaccination. That's right.
Nice. So you and I are going to go out drinking, right?
Right.
I can join you guys now too. That's right.
Yeah, really.
We'll
And,
get all us old folks together at the bar. That's what we need.
absolutely.
Speaking of that, Bosback, did you get your vaccinations yet? Unmute yourself there, John.
Oh,
There we go.
Sorry, I was still muted. I've had both of my shots and I'm about 3 weeks out from the second one, so I should be pretty well protected at this point in time with it. Hopefully, anyway.
So you're
No
gonna join us, you're gonna join us at the bar?
Yeah, sure. I'll have a 7-Up with you. Okay.
I'm looking across my screen. Cindy Hall, how are you today?
I'm good. I just want to make a comment for the next foghorn that goes out. You mentioned the donation I had shared with Jim. I got an email and I also got in the snail mail the request for a contribution from Rotary Foundation. So if you want us to donate to the Michigan City Rotary, I know, Jim, you sent me the, what to make the check payable to, but where do I send it? Or is there a way I can do it online somewhere?
Boy,
Good
You can do
question.
it. You can do it online. There is a way to say donate to our foundation. I believe it's at the bottom of the first page. But
And that would go. That wouldn't be the international one, like I
no,
showed.
that would be our club foundation.
And that's on the bottom of the foghorn.
Well, no, it's not on the foghorn. It's on the website, I believe. Let me check the website here real quick.
I'm thinking that you might put it in your next newsletter and just dedicate like a little paragraph so all of us as members know, hey, we're doing our fundraising campaign. Click on this link to make it convenient. We're striving for $50 a person.
Okay,
That's just my suggestion as a fundraising person.
that's good. Hey, Matt, did you hear her?
I
You gonna
heard
write a
that.
little article for the next newsletter?
You're on. Thank you.
Because otherwise, when I get the international mailing, I have sent my check straight to them and I've made reference to the Michigan City Rotary. And same thing when I've gotten emails, or same thing when I've been called by the district governor asking me to renew my pledge.
Yeah, right now the way you do it online is you go to our website and in the top it says donations. There's a donations button. If you click on that, then it takes you to one where you can donate to the club foundation.
Okay.
Okay, but we'll get something in the newsletter to point that out to people.
That way it makes it convenient and you're more likely to get people to move to action.
Sure.
Absolutely. Thank you. Debbie, how are you today?
I am well. Hi, everybody. I just want to point out, Jim, it wasn't me spilling the drinks. It was me worried about the other people spilling
Oh,
on my seat. And then you've got the wet seat, and that's a whole thing. And I have very limited I have tons of experience riding the South Shore. Let's just be clear. So when we talk about trains and people bringing bikes and people bringing sandwiches and all of that, I've had all the experiences on the South Shore, and they're all, can we say, character building. So the pictures of the beautiful high-speed rail look nothing like my experience. And
Right.
So he's talking about safety and everyone having a drink, and I'm like, that would be lovely, but that is not my experience.
That's
One
it.
thing I haven't encountered is a goat, but I'm waiting. There's probably going to be a goat on my next crowded train ride when when Chicago opens back up fully and we're going to games.
Well, see, when you're like me, when you're using the train as your method of getting around while you're retired, we take the first class trains. So we have rooms, roomettes that we're in. We eat in a diner. So it's much better than just doing the South Shore, which is one of the reasons I take Amtrak to Chicago and not the South Shore right now. So
It makes sense. Thanks for clarifying, because my experience is much different.
well, you can someday I'll take you on a train trip, show you what it's really like.
Matthew Howell, unmute and tell us how things are at Ivy Tech.
They're going well. We're making preparations to return to campus next week.
Oh my.
The faculty are. The campuses have been open, but we're making plans now to go ahead and return, start opening up and returning to face-to-face classes once we return from spring break next week.
Wow.
Although I have to say most of the faculty are probably a little bit more excited about spring break than returning.
I always was.
I know the students are.
Yeah, very good. So are the faculty been mostly teaching online?
Yeah, except for situations where there's a lab component and the students really need the hands-on.
Sure.
We have taken an approach where if it's feasible, and it's working and the outcomes are as near as we can determine similar, remain virtual just for safety's sake. But where we need to, we have masks and social distancing and face shields where the students need the hands-on experience.
Kara just messaged that sorry she had to leave, but everyone enjoy the beautiful weather. So Nicole, you're the last, but certainly not least.
We're doing good here. Just it is nice that we're starting to be able to go to clients more now, more face to face. So that's wonderful. It's very hard to keep that rapport and to make new connections when you're not face to face. I mean, the virtual is wonderful. Don't get me wrong. At least it's been able to give us the ability to keep doing work and stuff like that. But it's gonna be awesome. I got to see my first client face to face last week, so I was super pumped. So it was really nice. It was good to see everybody again, and it'd be nice that we could see each other in the office again too. So
Cool.
yeah.
Well, I see that Pastor Carol kind of slipped out, so I'm going to do the benediction.
Well, before you do the benediction, Matt, let me say that the board for Rotary and the board members who are here, you're going to hear about this in a little bit, but we'll be calling our members and doing a kind of a survey to see when and how we think we can get back to face-to-face meetings, either indoors or outdoors. Temperature's starting to get a little better. We're starting to be able to get more people vaccinated. We're starting to be able to get more things that we probably can do. So our goal is to try to get back face-to-face to see if we can do some things. So just know that that's in the future, and we're working on to try to get it going.
Matt, one more thing with it. A former Rotarian, Harry Johnson, passed away this past week. You might want to put that in the bulletin with it. He was a member for many, many years. He was 92 years old, I think, 93, something like that. So just mention it to you.
Okay, John, if you put that in an email to me, I could make sure I don't forget.
Okay, I'll just send you an email, Jim, okay?
All right, thanks a lot, John.
Okay. So our benediction for today as we leave. I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service was joy. Everyone have a wonderful day.
All right.